What's up, narrators? We are back with the Narratives Per Possession podcast. I am Morris Bankston, and I'm excited to be back. And welcome to Narratives Per Possession, where we connect you to better basketball narratives. I can't say enough about this episode that we're about to have. I'm beyond excited for a couple of reasons. One, there's a surprise story in the NBA Western Conference, and I'm not talking about what the San Antonio Spurs did to Oklahoma City Thunder. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Phoenix Suns because they're actually playing, on the whole, better ball than a lot of people expected. And the guest I have on tonight to help us talk about, the story of the Phoenix Suns, I'm excited. Like I've gone back and forth on the internet for years with this gentleman. I admire his work. I can't say enough about it. I also think he might be like one of the hardest working people in basketball right now. He covers the Phoenix Suns for PHNX Sports. Covers the Phoenix Mercury as well on the W side for PHNX Sports. And also covers the Chicago Sky for CHGO Sports. Without further ado, I will bring to the stage the great, illustrious Stephen PridGeon-Garner. Welcome, sir. Thank you for being on the pod. How are you?
Man, I'm doing great. Holiday season, Christmas right around the corner. Feels like Thanksgiving was just yesterday. The way that all these games have been going and the schedule's been all hectic and everything, but all is well, man. I'm proud of you for making your platform happen. I know it was something you said you wanted to make happen some time ago. And then before I knew it, that time that you mentioned we wanted to happen came to fruition, and here you are, multiple months into it. So congratulations to you. And I'm glad we both got an opportunity to, hop on the mic and talk some basketball instead of talking on the timeline all the time.
Absolutely. It's funny, man. It feels like it was just yesterday, but yeah, like the journey of going, like I can remember like it was just yesterday, like, before a platform existed in my hands or whatever, just, live tweeting Bulls games years ago. And here we are. And yeah, I am grateful for, where Narratives Per Possession is going, what we've already done. I mean, great guests in the past, Caitlin Cooper, like you, like just the I think it's a testament to what I aspire for this platform to be, where it's like we talk about basketball, like actual basketball, and certainly have fun with it, but like try to keep the main thing, so to speak.
For sure. Yeah, and needless to say, we need a lot more platforms like this. I feel like the actual basketball gets lost in conversations that many platforms, whether it be written, video, or podcast, or all three in one, feel like they lose the plot on what the actual subject is at times. And I'm glad that you go about doing it the way that you do, because we certainly need more of it on all sides of basketball, college platforms included. So I'm glad I could play any part in helping you, continue to make your thing happen. So again, thank you for the time.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't plan this, but like it would, for the benefit of just the greater world, right? I mean, your story of how your journey in sports media, it's always an amazing one to hear. And I just, maybe like a couple of minutes, just like how you've worked your way to where you are right now, where you're covering again, you covering three major basketball organizations right now. And it's just, I think it's a testament because I know where you've come from, and that story needs to be told, and hopefully inspires people who want to do more of this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a hustle. And I'll emphasize that in all caps. When you love it, when you love something, you'll fully embrace yourself in it, and you'll allow for it to fully consume your time. And needless to say, I love basketball. Basketball has been great to me in my life, from my playing days to now me being on the other side of playing and covering teams and covering players and having those conversations and trying to, per the name of your podcast, drive the narratives that are informing, engaging, and entertaining people, but in that particular order. It's fun. Grew up playing basketball, grew up in the same town as Doc Rivers, Michael Finley, Shannon Brown, Javon Carter. There's a laundry list of names of guys that grew up in the same area that I did, same part of Illinois, same part of Chicago, western suburbs. And I was just always around the game. I had a ton of cousins that have played at varying levels, a ton of friends that have played at varying levels. So just being around the game so much and caring about it with a certain type of valuing of it just kind of steered me. And like I said in the opening, when you embrace something and you allow for it to kind of steer you, it kind of takes you where you're ultimately destined and desired to be. So for some people, it might be a couple months. Some people, it might be years. I graduated from school in college in 2018, and I didn't get my first full-time opportunity until last year. So there was a lot of hustle involved and a lot of tests, and I feel like my faith as well as the universe really trying to see how much I actually care about this thing that I've vocalized and that I've committed so much time to prior to getting this opportunity. And again, just the commitment and the trust and belief in my faith in that the work would pay off at some point kind of got me to now. So started off covering the Chicago Sky. That was my first opportunity to cover a team in person, the first franchise that, approved my credential to want to cover the team in person. That happened the season after they won the championship in 22. I was able to cover the team in 2021 during their finals run when they won it all with Candace Parker. But it was a little different just because that was solely over Zoom because of COVID and everything.
Oh, yeah.
That was my first opportunity. And then after 21, you get to 22, covering that team in person. Start getting a little bit of opportunity to cover the Bulls as well as the Suns in person at times. And all of that's kind of helped me network and build up a foundation to now I was extended the opportunity to cover the Suns full time as well as the Mercury. And here I am covering all three of those teams, the Suns, the Mercury, and the Sky, under one umbrella with two different kind of entities, but all under the same kind of family network with all cities. So grateful is an understatement, man.
Yeah, man.
Guiding me, man. God's guiding me, and here I am now, just kind of being able to show him how much I appreciate the opportunities he's extending me by just kind of, going at it the way I do. So I appreciate you always, man.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I can't say enough, man, about again, like what I've personally taken away from like your journey and how it's inspired me. And I learned, and I mean, to be honest, like I learn daily every time I see you on the timeline, because I mean the thing that I would also just like borderline embarrass you about, like every single tweet you put out there, man, like you don't put fat out there. It's always dense and nutritious basketball conversation. So I can go on forever about that. But it's a good segue. Yeah, it's a good segue. I mean, the last of the three teams you covered, you mentioned, right? So the Phoenix Suns. So we are actually here to talk about the Phoenix Suns. And, the last game probably didn't end the way they wanted to, but there was a lot of interesting things there. And I mean, let's start there first with they had really a tough nail biting kind of ending of a crazy fourth quarter, but like they're really going at the Los Angeles Lakers in a pretty spirited contest, right? Ultimately they go down by 2 points to the Lakers, 116 to 114. What were some of the things that actually I'll say this, like the thing that when I caught primarily the second half of it, but just like on the whole, like what would you sort of frame as the trajectory of how that game went for the Suns?
I think though they ended on the wrong side of the win-loss column in that game kind of encapsulated what this team is. So want to lay the land first. Obviously, the Lakers are operating without Austin Reeves, one of the best scorers in the game. Also a player that draws a ton of fouls, has a ton of attention that he garners, and plays as well off of LeBron and Luka as you can imagine any player would. So that part of it matters for sure. The Suns were without, obviously, Jalen Green, who's supposed to be essentially the Suns' version of Austin Reeves and playing off of the attention and the multiple types of it that Devin Booker receives on a nightly basis. And it was also Devin Booker's first game back after missing a little bit over a week with this groin injury. So him being Devin Booker being back and playing the way that he did definitely helped the Suns navigate that. I do feel like in pockets they missed what they ultimately will get with Jalen Green. Obviously, Jalen Green's been out for the last a little over a month now with this hamstring re-aggravation or injury of the same one that kept him out to start the season. He's in that kind of window to return sometime soon now. They said 4 to 6 weeks. This is week 5 of that. So I imagine he's back sometime soon. But that part, injuries aside, I think with the Suns, if them going up against a team that if you ask people questions how these matchups with the Lakers would go prior to the season starting, I don't know if anybody would have said outside of, a few people in the media realm over here in Phoenix and a couple of fans that they would be going toe to toe with a LeBron James and Luka Doncic led team. And that was very much the case. Fast or rewind 2 weeks ago, they played this very same Lakers team in Los Angeles, and they went and won that game in very, very convincing fashion. It wasn't an anomaly of threes that they made, and it wasn't like a drought of shots that weren't made from the Lakers. They very much went toe to toe, and their process was better, and the execution was too. So you come to Sunday's game, and they're going back and forth. That first half was some of the best basketball across the league that I've been able to watch all season long. And then the second half, the Lakers do what they do in that third quarter into the early fourth quarter stretch, that 24-0 run.
Yeah.
Will be a knockout punch for many teams. You go 8.5 minutes without scoring against a Lakers team that scores 24. That's usually not something that most teams can come back from. But again, this Suns team and how resilient they are, even without Jalen Green, get to the last 4 minutes, they give themselves a chance. They go on like a 12 or 14-0 run, start to chip away at that margin of deficit that they're at and make it interesting. I kind of start there. There's more to dive into. But yeah, Morris, for you, when you've watched this Suns team or you've been able to keep tabs, does that game on Sunday kind of exemplify the things that you've seen as far as the resilience, the execution, and just kind of that surprising nature?
It has, and to be honest, like I need to catch up on more Suns minutes. Like that might have been some of the first Suns minutes I actually watched was Sunday. What I've kept up in terms of the storylines, at least, and I do want to talk about this in a bit. Like when we just started to look at some of the roster moves, because I mean we were talking about this before we went live, right? Like the makeup of the roster, I think it's getting its proper due now. Maybe it just flew under the radar because of just the aftermath of Kevin Durant leaving and just like the expectation, like, oh well, you're gonna tank now. But I know from what I've like the things that I've seen before Sunday, the impact of Dillon Brooks is really, it seems to be taking root with this roster. And in some ways, like I'm guilty of it. Like I've made some fun of Dillon Brooks over the years because, like, it's just there's the quote unquote the Dillon Brooks experience, and some might argue you saw that unfortunately at the end of that Sunday game. But at the same time, like what you can't deny from his impact and what he brings to a roster, any roster. Look at these Houston Rockets right now in the aftermath of Dillon Brooks. He brings a level of physicality, he brings a level of toughness. We can go back to Memphis Grizzlies, Dillon Brooks as well. That seems to be like, I mean, you use the perfect word. There's a resilience that he brings to a roster's identity, and that's what impressed me upon me from watching that second half, because like once the Lakers went on that run where the Suns are scoreless from like mid third quarter, like you said, to the middle of the fourth quarter, like you would expect, oh, this is almost garbage time. But it's just like they kept pushing at it. And there's some credit to be given to Dillon Brooks as well, because he was in foul trouble as well, right? Like, again, if it wasn't for, I don't know, like controversy might be a strong word, but like it seems like that call where, the closeout that LeBron put on Brooks and then the back and forth, like a different era of NBA might just play on, because like everybody knows the history between those two guys. So the tough, like there's a toughness and there's a resiliency that maybe wasn't even there before, like ever, that I'm noticing. And that might be the thing to keep an eye on. Just like, that's my first opening statement observation outside looking in at these Phoenix Suns, is this is going to be a different kind of Suns team versus what they've been the last few seasons.
Yeah, I think it's the mentality part that you bring up with Dillon Brooks in particular. There's a complementary competitive stubbornness that he has that is what makes him as good as he is. That confidence is something that grows contagious when he's on the floor with guys. You got a guy that on the first possession of a preseason game in China is diving on the floor for a loose ball. Guys, most guys are not cut from that cloth.
Yeah.
Dillon only knows one motor to play with. And I know it's a common thing for people to say about a lot of players, but few wear those qualities the ways in which he does. And the narrative around him sometimes seems like people speak about him as if his impact on winning and a culture and an identity is not conducive to winning. And that couldn't be any further from the truth, because I think this is a direct example. What this Suns team is, by many people's accounts, based off of the tweets that I saw and the things that people frugally said, is severely and significantly overachieving what many people's expectations were. And I was on the high side for the Suns, saying that they would be around 500, maybe get to a game or so above it. And at this pace, they're on pace to win about 48, 49 games. So they're even ahead of my kind of lofty expectations relative to what many people were saying. Look no further than him. The anointing of Villain Jr. to Colin Gillespie. The conversations that he's had with Ryan Dunn about tools of the trade and how to be a person that can defend physically, but staying out of foul trouble. Understanding the type of whistle that you receive from referees, no different than a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or some other type of elite offensive talent understands as far as how the whistle they get and is received over the course of a game can allow for them to kind of pull strings. Ryan Dunn's been better. He's still working with that. But again, these are multiple forms of leadership bestowed upon guys by Dillon Brooks. And that emanates directly from the head coach, Jordan Knott. Him instilling confidence in Dillon to be himself and multiple other guys to not just be themselves in personality, be yourself on the court and how you play. We have principles, we have schemes and things we want to play to, but you guys all you guys have a certain skill set. We don't want to take you away from that, because that's going to take away from the impact you can provide. How is the team going to be good if you're not playing to your strengths? Jordan Goodwin being implored to go for offensive rebounds whenever. Ryan Dunn the same. Mark Williams, we need you to get back in transition on defense, but if you see an opportunity, as long as you're making good on more of those than you're missing on that compromises the transition defense, you got the green light to go for those O boards. And you see them winning a possession game probably 85 to 90% of their games so far. Like, that's emanating from coaching. But Dillon Brooks is a direct example of everything that is a confident ecosystem that Jordan Knott has established.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just, I mean, piggybacking on Mark Williams in particular, you know, Mark Williams had a strong, he was really the strong number 2 in that Sunday game as well. I mean, to your point about the offensive rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds, that translates to he had 12.5% offensive rebounding rate. I mean, that's solid. I mean, to be honest. So that's and so it leads me to a good segue to I definitely want to get your perspective on, so Jordan Ott, he comes in, he's now in his inaugural season with the Phoenix Suns after replacing Mike Budenholzer. Perhaps, I mean, honestly, just think out loud, I mean, that probably wouldn't feed into a lot of outside observers' expectations for this roster either. I mean, you come in with new head coach, you just lost Kevin Durant. So these are, I imagine these are the things where, like, this is how, be on brand for a second, the narrative of like, oh, the Suns are not going to do anything this season. That's how it probably formulated. But talk to us about what you're seeing from Jordan Ott thus far in terms of the philosophy that he's bringing to the Suns, the principles on the court on either side. Like, what is he bringing to this roster so far that's really, I would assume, like, helping fuel this strong start?
Yeah. Where I start with Jordan Knott, and I mentioned this when the Suns hired him as well. I go back to a quote from Nipsey Hussle, and he's obviously someone that's full of rich quotes that you can apply to your life. If you don't know who that is, do the research and you'll see what I mean. But one of my favorite quotes from him is that he said that leaders, the best leaders, the true leaders, are servants first. And approaching leadership in a what can I do for you mindset and looking at things through that lens and holding yourself accountable to things through that lens, the approach comes off completely differently than I have this title. I want you to do these things because that's what I need for my team to be the best. Like the entire tone in the approach is just met and received completely differently when the approach is being a servant before asking for more from guys or asking for something different or being able to challenge guys. You got to be able to generate buy-in from guys before anything. And the best way to generate buy-in from guys is to show them that, for one, you know who they are, you know what they bring to the table, and that you can also help them improve and be a better version of themselves. At the end of the day, each individual basketball player, especially on the NBA level, one thing they want to do is make more money. The only way you're going to make more money is if you're playing a better brand of basketball that is sustained and that you're showing to do things maybe in a way uniquely from what you did prior to the season you're in. That development arc is important. And that's what Jordan Knott and his entire coaching staff has leaned into, that being of servant. Heard on multiple accounts from multiple players. I'll use Nigel Hayes-Davis, for example. So he gets brought in from overseas. And he says the first time he meets Jordan Knott, he has plays and things in mind from what he saw from overseas and immediately starts having these questions and starts speaking to the ways in which he looks at developing and getting him to a point where he can be successful within the system, but understanding and preaching that the system is an entity of what he sees from each of the players individually. So it's like a living organism. It's not something that's just an end all be all. And again, that servant mindset, that first conversation you have, imagine you're going into an employer and they're immediately talking about, yeah, so I saw you did this, that, and the third with your other company that you used to work with. And I think you'll be an asset to us because you can do all of these things. And I'm looking forward to you letting me know how else I can help. Like, that entire tone being set is what everything emanates from. And you extrapolate that and multiply that across 16 different guys. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So I start there with Jordan. There's a ton of schemes and philosophies he used that I like, but I wanted to start there first because I feel like you can't get to the impact and return on investment of all of the things you want to do in principle without the human element being addressed first. And I feel like he hit an absolute grand slam on that, and because of that, the Suns hit a grand slam in hiring him.
Yeah, that hearing it from you also, because I mean you've played the game as well, and I mean you bring up a great point. Sometimes, like, basketball, we can make it as complex as we want to, but also, like, there's a lot of ways where basketball is just like a simple thing that it doesn't take a big leap to see how, like, in your own walk of life, there's some similarities and things. And yeah, so like you show up to the new job, you want to work, you want to be your best self, and that is something like that's just profound to hear that player shows up day one and the boss, so to speak, has a plan, a coherent plan for like how they're going to help you be successful. So that it's showing in the gameplay, for sure. What are some of those things? I mean, to touch on the scheme a bit, is there anything, I guess, in the context of where the Suns were last season, with Coach Bud and his way of like how he likes to run his offense and his defense? Is there anything that's like materially drastically different going into like these first 20-ish games you've seen so far? Or is it more of like, just to put it in a spectrum or something, is it more of like just trying to get some basic foundational things out there that the guys can just like quickly sort of start buying into?
Yeah, for sure. I start with the defensive end of the floor with this team, especially when comparing it to last season's team. Last season, we're talking about one of the worst defenses in the league and the outright worst defense in the half court. They put no pressure on the basketball. They couldn't contain the basketball. They couldn't protect the rim. They didn't have too much scheme versatility. They had guys that could do different things, but they was never in unison with one another. Led to a team that was disjointed to the extent where even having an all-time great like Kevin Durant and one of the best scoring options in Devin Booker, as well as capacities of Bradley Beal across the season, was never fully enough to sustainably win games outside of the first 9 to 10 games because the defense was just it was just so absent. So I start there and look at the differences. This Phoenix Suns team is leading the league in steals. This Phoenix Suns team is one of the 4 or 5 best teams in deflections. This Phoenix Suns team is one of the best at picking up teams in the backcourt. So when they're inbounding the basketball, they're one of the top 5 in terms of percent of picking up opponents on the other side of half court. They also have like a top 3 or top 4 pickup point. They're picking up teams inside the opposite free throw line as frequently as almost any other team outside of maybe 2 or 3 other teams in the league right now. So they're putting pressure on the basketball. They're really good and really disciplined and good with executing in terms of defending to scheme. There's multiple schemes in which they can defend to, and all of them kind of tie and blend in with one another. And it's honestly, we see the impact not just sustained when the starting group starts to exit the lineup and the reserves come in. It picks up in activity, and they get even more chaotic. It's literally organized chaos when you get Colin Gillespie and Jordan Goodwin and Ryan Dunn and also Iguodala getting into the mix and just kind of playing to their versatility. They play faster, and they play faster because of the activity of their defense. They're top 3 in switch rate in terms of when they're in pick and roll, their ability to switch, and that doesn't extend to only that 4-player group that I'm speaking to off the bench. Mark Williams, very first game he plays because he wasn't available in the regular season, in the preseason, regular season against the Kings, comes out and the defense was terrible in the first half. They go up 71, 72 points, something like that. You get into the fourth quarter, they start to work their way back, and they get into a clutch game in the final 5 minutes. Mark Williams comes out of timeout. He's switching on to Zach LaVine in the pick and roll. And now he's guarding his yard one-on-one without too much help around him. Guys are in the gaps, but the gaps are unengaged because he's able to contain and contest and defend without fouling. And then he comes back and does the same thing with Dennis Schroeder and then DeMar DeRozan. And it's these little things like that, those guys buying into the things that they want to do defensively, and then them also being able to ramp up the activity and pressure on the basketball within all of that infrastructure that they have. It's been very, very, very good. And again, it all ties back to the buy-in that generates from the valuing of humans and how he goes about that interaction, starting with Jordan Knott and his coaching staff.
Yeah. That's amazing just to hear that. And, I think it makes me think too of there's some, I'm not a Suns fan, but if I were a Suns fan, I would really start to tune in and start to feel like some increased levels of optimism, because these are sort of like familiar patterns that we've seen in the major turnarounds in the NBA over the last like 3 or 4 seasons. The Houston Rockets were the exact same way, right? Where young team, nobody expected anything of them. We're talking even before Durant, even before Fred VanVleet, but when VanVleet shows up, and Ime shows up, like the building blocks, the pillars of defense start getting implemented there. And then now all of a sudden, so ironically, Durant goes to the Rockets, and now, title contention is talked about. It's been the same story too with the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? Where the turnaround of the defense has set the foundation to make them contending teams. So yep. I'm not trying to get too ahead of the cart, but just to hear how you're describing, a condition where you have a Mark Williams, a big, containing Zach LaVine. And Zach LaVine's been, unnecessarily slandered for much of his career, but still, like, that's not nothing. Like, if you can contain Zach LaVine, because Zach LaVine could easily just, take him to the rim if you wanted to. I wasn't prepared for that anecdote. That's something.
Yeah, he's done that against multiple primary ball handlers. We've seen him switched against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at times. And we've seen him get switched up against other kind of elite to borderline elite level guards and just simply guard his yard. I think the other part of it, though, with Mark, they've been challenging him to not just be impactful playing a deep drop. We know he's been very good in playing a deep drop in his time with Charlotte. And I imagine part of why they're able to get more out of him and for him to respond so promptly to these things is because his head coach that was there when he got drafted by the Charlotte Hornets, Steve Clifford, is a coaching advisor to Jordan Knott. So yeah, some say so in the things that they're doing. I imagine specifically to the defense because he's just a defensive savant and a savant in basketball in general, but especially to the defensive end. Having that kind of that rapport with Mark Williams already, understanding his strengths and understanding ways in which they can improve him. Maybe it's just a continuum to everything that Steve Clifford wanted to do in Charlotte that we're seeing happening with the Suns because better defensive personnel, a more competitive environment, some better pillars around him. I think they're getting more out of him, and we're seeing the best version of Mark Williams comprehensively, but specific to the defensive end because of that. Go back to that game against the Spurs from a couple of months ago now. It's crazy. It's been almost 2 months since that game. They're going against Victor Wembanyama, and you know who he's guarding to start the game? Harrison Barnes. And they're putting a guard or a wing on Victor Wembanyama, and they're just kind of playing to the switches and allowing for him to stay around the basket and play that Roma role. And again, it's just another example of the versatility. That's a game that I feel like was kind of the Suns are here moment to most of national media because they go and win that game in, again, very convincing fashion. And it's not by just a happenstance. It's very much tried and true to their process. Defensive activity, defensive versatility, sustaining that, and then playing to the offense from there.
Yeah, it's funny. You just jogged my memory. Yeah, because that game was it was like borderline like headline grabbing stories about that because nobody again, this goes back to nobody expected anything out of the Phoenix Suns, but they go in there and they take it to Wemby of all people, and that opens eyes. That brings some attention. I also didn't know about that Steve Clifford connection. Another sort of Hornets connection. Perhaps this is like sort of Trojan horse strategy where it's like, let's get Mark Williams as comfortable as possible. So Nick Richards is also on the roster, also a former Charlotte Hornets big. Like what connection or what kind of influence or like camaraderie is that also giving to Mark Williams in that sense, having that familiar face of a Nick Richards in the locker room?
Yeah, it's clear that they get along well. I know a lot of media members were asking just what was the depth of their relationship as far as them having spent so much time with one another in Charlotte through so many different seasons and so many changes over there and things like that. It's clear that they're cool with each other. I think that's definitely helped Mark feel more comfortable as well. Nick obviously has had a front row seat to the potential of Mark. He was there when he got drafted. He's kind of played back and forth with them at practice and things like that. So coming into the Suns context, it was clear that there was kind of roles already understood to be established. It was just a matter of when Mark's health would hit and then sustain so that he would be available consistently for the team. And it's kind of made for when Nick is able to hold up his end of the weight as far as the production on the court. It's made for a pretty active front court. Again, for a team that's switching like the third or fourth most in the league, you would expect, okay, that's probably because Oso Iguodala is playing 25 minutes a night, a switch big. That's true, but there's also the Nick Richards part of it. He's been switching a ton, especially when he's gotten into the game the last 2 to 3 weeks. They've been living with him on guards at times, and he's been doing okay. He hasn't been getting blown by often. It's been more so understanding that distance of impact with him trying to contest shots that he has to kind of clean up some. But again, the Mark Williams part of it all, he's held up well in that too. So I think, again, the Steve Clifford dynamic, him being around, being able to get a little bit more out of those guys because of the breadth of knowledge and experience he has in the fire with those guys, I feel like it's kind of helped to kind of expedite the learning process to where they're able to get comfortable quick and then start providing impact on that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the other aspect of that I was curious about with the Suns' bigs rotation. Obviously, I mean, go back to the 25 draft. They have the lottery pick with Common Maluak. Hasn't really had a lot of burn yet. And it looks like mostly he's been spending his time in the G League. I imagine that's a byproduct of just where the Suns are right now, where they're trying to like feature Mark Williams and Nick Richards as much as possible.
Yeah, it feels like they're hitting the patient button with Kamal Marlowe, what they call him man over here. They're hitting the patience button with him. They're looking to really fine tune and lay a very solid, thorough foundation with him for his game. And I think a lot of what they're laying that foundation with starts with the defensive end of the floor. It sounds like and seems like they believe he can be one of the most elite bigs on that end of the floor to start. We'll get to the offense in a moment, but go back to his time with the Duke Blue Devils last season, and he's doing a lot of things defensively. Start with manning the paint. He's just a big presence, literally and figuratively. He's huge in the paint. He stretches out his wingspan and almost goes from lane line to lane line. He's good with the presentation part when he does have his hands up. And he has that rim deterrence about him where if he's in the vicinity of someone that's dribbling around the rim, his length and his prowess to block shots kind of plays into the psyche and decision making of guys when they have the ball around the paint and when he's there. So I think I start there. He does have depth of versatility in terms of him being able to get closer to the level of the screen, play to flat hedging, play to blitzing at times, being able to switch at times as well. He's good with his feet. The coordination part and defending without fouling on the perimeter is the next step for him, but he does have that versatility. He is an athlete. He's shown to be able to back up well and kind of play like a free safety, if you will. Get into those back pedals, but being coordinated enough to get deflections and assess things while it's happening on the fly and pick and roll. He has a lot of those kind of intangibles as well. There's a clear care factor and a valuing and urgency that's with him. And I think those things are kind of emanating from that foundation that's being established. And then you get to the offensive end for him. And he's somebody that's learning the game. I'll be doing a film session on him a little later on this week that'll be out. But the screen setting is getting better for him. He's understanding angles a little bit better. He's understanding the physicality part of it's not college. You can't just go set a space screen and then just get into the roll. Sometimes you got to hit guys and you got to hit and stick. So hit them, hold that screen so your guard can engage your man. And he's starting to understand that when he sets a good screen, especially one that's strategically good on this level, if you got Devin Booker coming off that screen, he's engaging your man. So now when you get into your role, you'll have much more real estate to work with. Or because your screen set so well, that guard has the attention of your man, someone else has to help on to you. And now that's opening up opportunities for others to score. So he's getting there with the screen setting. It's a work in progress still. But he's also understanding when he can pop as well. Setting that screen, sticking that if the guard still tries to go over and he knows that his man is engaged, you just pop to the left a little bit or pop to the right a little bit. And now you got a clean catch and shoot three as long as you have your feet underneath you. And I think last night he knocked down 3 threes over in their away game on the G League level with the Valley Suns over in Salt Lake City. So he's getting there. He's also a player that's only played but so many years. I think this is maybe his 5th or 6th year playing basketball. Yeah. So him being so young to basketball, but already being on the NBA level, says a lot about his ability to retain and then put forth the things he learns. Now it's just about how quickly the skill development and the strength kind of hit for him at that center position.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, there's some select ingredients that might just be coming to, you know, give it some time. But I mean, again, these are the stories we keep seeing over and over in this league right now. Defense and size, and have that kind of big rotation where you're hitting on like all 3 of these gentlemen, you know, able to be switchable, you know, setting solid screens. And the screen thing, that's one of my favorite micro skills, to be honest, because the more I started like appreciating screens, the more I realized like it's really not all that different than NFL football in a lot of ways in terms of like lineman play, where it's like the leverage that you have to have, the angles, and then like you said, it's like you can't just be like standing there like you did in the NBA. It's gotta be a hit, it's gotta be a stick, because if you're not doing that, you're not creating space for the ball. The ball's gotta go somewhere, and if all you can do is just like effortlessly blitz you or jump over you, like you haven't done anything with that screen. That's like one of my irks is like I see a screen in the league where it's just like it did nothing. It was just a performative screen. But I get on a soapbox about that. I want to bring up a couple of comments because and I want to shout everybody that's in this chat tonight. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. First of all, we got to give a shout out to our friend Melissa here. She's dropped in to say hello. And hello, Melissa. We always love.
What's up, Melissa?
Bless your presence in places. So thank you for that. But the other comment I wanted to go back to, because I did want to get into Colin Gillespie for a bit at some point, so this might be a good segue. He's really like demonstrating himself to be he looks like he's going to be like a very core rotational piece. I saw that much from Sunday's game as well, where just the impact he's making. So yeah, shout out to Zoe Cat 15 with a comment here about Gillespie. Yeah, let's go there a little bit on Colin Gillespie. Just is this now his? I forget. Is this his second or third season with the Suns?
This is his second season with the Suns.
Okay, so I mean, he's getting his he's pretty much established now in that locker room. Like, what is Colin Gillespie really from what you're observing? Like, what is he bringing to the table for the Suns team this season?
Yeah, I start with Colin. I go back to the offseason. I think the best move they made over the offseason was bringing in Jordan Knott. I think maybe not even next, the 1B to bringing in Jordan Knott being the 1A for the Suns. Signing Colin Gillespie to the contract that they did, because last season, needless to say, dire straits. One of the few positives remaining from last season's roster was what Colin Gillespie did for this team when he was given opportunity, but when he also snatched and took opportunity from that backcourt towards the tail end of last season post All-Star break. To the extent where Mike Budenholzer was put in a position where he had to play him. And to the point where he didn't just have to play him. He was like, this guy is too good for us. We're trying to figure things out. He's got to start. And he ends up starting double-digit games for the Suns down the home stretch of last season. Now, the season's finish was what it was, but that wasn't an example in any capacity of what Colin Gillespie is as a player. And I start with him being a winner. One thing a winner is going to do, you put them in any situation. If it's a winning situation, he's going to make that better on the margins and in terms of impact past the margins. Put him in a losing situation, the tides are going to rise when that player is on the court because of the approach. But the approach comes back to the day-to-day preparation and how they show up. By all accounts and everything that I've been able to witness, Colin Gillespie is an A-plus teammate. His approach every day is something that it becomes contagious. You come in, you see someone working hard, you can't do anything less than that in respect to your position. And again, you're talking about building a culture. Last season, there wasn't too many bright spots with that Suns team. Him being what he was and what he did was essentially something the Suns franchise had to do, bring him in on the contract that they did. And now you get to this season, I talked about being anointed villain junior and him almost like he asked to learn the ways. And then he went and kind of snatched the villain junior title, knocking down game winners at practice, getting into scuffles for loose balls and things like that in training camp. And then we see him go and hit a game winner against the Minnesota Timberwolves in a somewhat improbable fashion. Dillon Brooks fouls out after Devin Booker fouled out in that game. And he ends up going and knocking down a shot over Gobert and then getting a heady stop on Anthony Edwards, forcing him to make a pass for Julius Randle to take a kind of grenade shot at the end of that game. This is a winning basketball player. And Colin, not just the offensive side, because he's also shooting the leather off the ball comprehensively this season and also has been very good in pick and roll. But for someone that's not the biggest in stature and teams constantly try to pick at him in terms of matchup hunting with him on the defensive end, LeBron, you want to mismatch on me? Cool. I'm just going to stay in front of you. You might hit a shot over the top of me, but you're not going to abuse me, nor are you going to just kind of take advantage of me in any capacity. Luka, you want to try it as well? That's cool. I'm still here. You can shoot over me. I can't do anything about that, but it's not going to be an easy bucket for you. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, some of the most times he's been the screener for someone that's trying to kind of matchup hunt, has been against these two teams, and then you could throw Minnesota in that mix. Anthony Edwards, naturally. He's just holding up, guarding his yard, doing a good job of standing in front of guys to the point where Jordan Knott's like, we can switch you. We don't have to try to do exotic things to kind of help you on the ball. You can just go defend. And if guys are going to score, they're going to score. Honestly, if they're not matchup hunting, those guys, that quality of guys is probably still going to score the basketball either way. So if we don't have to send double teams profusely, which puts us in rotation and concedes good shot quality to other guys, we can just play one-on-one more often than not. That helps our defensive process. And then you put that in tandem with him being able to guard guys 94 feet. He's one of the most impactful extended pickup guys in the entire league. Last time I checked, they were underneath a point per possession when he's at the point of attack, picking up guys on the other side of half court, which is really, really, really good. He's operating as one of the best point of attack guys when doing that. It just really speaks to the heart and the kind of grittiness. He has that competitive stubbornness as well about his game, and those qualities, again, no different than Dillon Brooks, but unique to Colin Gillespie. They kind of grow contagious to the players on the court with him.
Yeah. Yeah, somewhat of a good sort of detour off of this, but it's related, and I think it is worth like probing into this a bit. I mean, you've mentioned pickup points a few times, and I had strong suspicion when I was watching the NBA Finals last season that was going to become a point of conversation for this coming season. What are your impressions of just pickup points in general across the league from the season? Because, like I just mentioned, it was one part the finals, but then also when shout out to former guest Caitlin Cooper, when she interviewed Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle, he talked about that a lot. And as everybody say, the NBA is a copycat league. It seems like that is the new thing, and to the point where I feel like pickup points are becoming as much of a part of defensive conversation as switching has been traditionally, if not starting to become more the conversation.
Yeah, it is. To the copycat league point, Steve Jones Jr. mentioned it early in the season, and he's kind of reiterated it a few times. It's been funny to see all the teams that had this as something they wanted to try in preseason, and then come to games in training camp, and you're looking at, okay, it's cool to want to try to replicate something. Everybody wants to be Michael Jordan. If you're not 6'6" and you're not an elite level athlete with great touch from the mid range and the best footwork ever, can you really be Michael Jordan? So if you want to be the Indiana Pacers of last season, question number one, do you have guys, not just guys, do you have dudes and multiple that can guard the basketball at the point of attack? Can they steer the wheel of your defensive possession without having help around you? Because imagine you're trying to pick up Ja Morant and there's no nail help and there's no one pass away help anywhere because you haven't even crossed the half court line yet. Can you be trusted to not be blown by? But can you also do enough to impact the basketball so that if a team is inbounding the ball, there's 24 seconds naturally, can you shrink that margin and kind of weaponize the shot clock, if you will? And that's the difference. Everybody wants that. Only few teams have the personnel and guys that want to actually do that. The Suns have a crop of guys that can do that. The Portland Trailblazers, when they're healthy, have a crop of guys that can do that. The Boston Celtics have some people that can do that. Like, there's a few teams that can do that. The Brooklyn Nets are a team that wants to do that. The impact on results, I'll just say go watch those games. I'm not here to slander a team, but that's an example of it. They're one of the best teams in terms of pickup points and how consistently they get to it. Do they have the personnel?
Yeah.
So that's the difference. And I actually had to ask Rick Carlisle when the Suns played the Pacers last month about pickup points, but in general, just the approach to basketball that they had on the margins last season and the difference it made for them. And he said he definitely sees a lot of that in the Suns with how Jordan not desires for them to play in process, but how some of those guys are cut from in terms of their cloth individually.
Yeah, it's really just a fascinating evolution this season to see how much the pickup point is becoming, pun intended, a point of emphasis in this league. Because I remember, I'll have to go dig it up. I remember there's a clip this series in my mind from probably like talking about when Rick Pitino went back into the NBA to coach the Boston Celtics. And I feel like 99% confident it was Antoine Walker kind of remarking about that and having to have the heart-to-heart with his former college coach about like, coach, this NBA really can't be full court pressing like this anymore. This is like 98. And here we are, like what, 20, almost 30 years later, and now everybody's basically pressing like college. And it kind of like, it reminds me of like in the NFL when teams like finally started embracing like RPOs for the first time, run pass option, like which used to be considered like a college gimmick, like running the option. But now, like, it's the bread and butter of the NFL. This might be, I think, an inflection point for this league where people are going to be looking at teams crazy for not pressing at some point. Like, where's your press coverage? Like, You gotta have it now in the NBA, apparently.
I mean, yeah, it comes down to, do you want teams to be comfortable getting into the half court and then having not just the actual set or action they want to get to, but if you defend that well, are you comfortable with, because you aren't putting pressure on the ball, a team being able to get to the second side comfortably and still have 16, 17, 18 seconds on the clock? And if that's not there, because you're not putting pressure on the ball from the onset, they can now get to the third side or reset and get into a second action with 12 or 11 or 14, 13 seconds left. Are you okay with that? Would you rather live with that? Or would you rather work early with the 24 seconds, have them get across the half court line as close to 16 as you possibly can, and then not just get across the half court line with 16, now you're not getting into your first action, if you're getting into any action at all, until 14, 13, 12 seconds left. So even if you do have a Luka Doncic or LeBron or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Steph Curry, you're shrinking those margins, putting yourself in position, again, weaponizing the shot clock to be more successful. If teams only get to one action and you defend that one action well, or all it takes is one switch that throws that entire set off, or one deflection, or one back tap of the basketball, and now there's 4 seconds left, and somebody's either shooting a low shot quality shot or they're passing a grenade off to somebody else that's heavily contested, and you're able to extrapolate that and copy and paste it across 50, 60, 70 possessions over a game. And if you're scoring well on the other side, that's the way you kind of navigate these games against teams like, for the Suns, that might not have the top end talent that Oklahoma City has, or a Lakers team has, or a Minnesota Timberwolves team has. Like, that's the way that they've kind of gotten to this point this season. It's because their process is tried and true, and they also have bought into that process largely because they've seen the results. But all of it, again, emanates back to what we spoke to at the beginning, the head coach and the way that he's built those individual relationships and how he's seen return on investment from those because of the ways in which he's gone about doing so.
Absolutely. Yeah, for like a solid decade, basically, the Warriors dynasty framed NBA competition almost exclusively in the context of space, even though it was always pace and space. It was really more like the spacing aspect of the game was how the terms of engagement were being dictated between competing teams. With this pickup point evolution, it seems to me that the pace aspect of it finally is coming into clear, like, battle engagement terms or what have you, where it's like you see now how people are truly warring on pace because everybody, like, the league has been so forward on these early offense type of attacks to try to, like, juice up their efficiency. And now, like, I enjoy this. I'm glad that there's a defensive response finally to this latest wave of the offensive evolutions, where now it's fighting to see who will control the shot clock, which is I don't know if we've really had that kind of conversation in the NBA, at least in NBA conversations of hoops in the past, where, like, we're talking about the shot clock as much. I remember, and what comes to mind, early on with the Houston Rockets, where they were kind of having like a sort of a sputtering start. That I had guest on this on the Rockets beat, Lashard Binkley, and I talked about, like, the Rockets were really struggling just getting into actions and making use of the shot clock, because I can't remember the exact stat off the top of my head, but, like, I think they were, like, the majority of the shots were somewhere between like 14 seconds and less of the shot clock. So I just say that to really emphasize the point you're making. Like, it's going to come down to, like, does the offense do they control the shot clock? Are they able to get to, like, 2 or 3 actions to find that high quality shot? Or is the defense really taking away the shot clock from them? Again, the spacing thing is not even so much of a concern anymore, because 3-point shooting is kind of level out to where it's not really advantage, but it's like, who can control the clock the most effectively to where you really shut down the opportunity for offenses to pop off. Like, you just, like, you blow it up without actually even trying to, like, blow up the coverage. It's like, force them, like, make the clock the 6th defender, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I think Houston is an anomaly to the pressure piece in a few ways, because they're a team that naturally plays slower. They play through the post, they play through the elbow, they play through the nail tons of ISO touches and post touches for Alfred Şengün. Obviously, even more so for Kevin Durant. Steven Adams gets a few here and there. Like, they have some guys that Jabari Smith Jr. gets a handful of those as well. Like, they have guys that are comfortable, and their team in general, that was part of what made that first round series between them and the Golden State Warriors so fun and intriguing for me last year, because you have a team that likes to create chaos in the half court defensively in the Warriors, and you have them going up against a team that's just brute strength, and they're very comfortable playing slow because of their top end pieces. Now, obviously, last season they didn't have the shot making to aid that slower kind of game process that they have on offense. And I actually asked Ime Udoka about this when the Suns played the Rockets about 2 weeks ago as well. And he's like, I mean, we want to play faster at times, but we also understand what our best advantages are and our main advantage creators. Obviously, Kevin Durant, he didn't play in that game, but him and Alfred Şengün are very good decision makers, but they also draw fouls, and they're also great shot makers. So do you want to speed things up for the sake of playing faster, or do you want to play to a certain pace in the half court and speed it up if you're playing off of turnovers, which they're a team that does a lot of that because of their point of attack and help defense? So I think they're an anomaly to that conversation we're having, but the test is going to come in the playoffs, because if their shot makers aren't seeing the space that they need to comfortably make those shots all the time, they reshuffle the deck, but might still find themselves in the same position if that offensive rebounding rate that's historic right now doesn't kind of return on them being able to score on some of those second chance opportunities. So the rent will be due on them kind of answering some questions, but naturally, I think them being a team that's very comfortable playing slower, grabbing someone like Kevin Durant, who's also been someone that plays slower in terms of the slow developing style of play, and that shot making that comes with that, it just makes it a little tough for them. So I have an eye on them, but they're definitely an anomaly. Maybe we're the only team that's a true anomaly to kind of what it is we're speaking to now.
Absolutely, yeah. Because
outside of them and then Denver, because Denver obviously.
Well, yeah, because I mean, Jokic is just, I mean, he is his own ecosystem by himself, because the amount of gravity he creates, and then at the same time, like he's able to simultaneously have like gravity and create like spacing off the DHOs. It's just like, it's always fascinating every time I see Denver play, because even though like what's coming from them, it also is like it's always like there's a new wrinkle every game with them.
It is. Yeah. That's why they're so good. That's why they are where they are right now, and they'll be in everybody's way again at come playoff time this season.
Yeah, I gotta give a quick shout out. We got another friend in the chat. We got Chris in here now. What's up, Chris? Thank you for joining. Yeah. I want to get back to the Suns on one more topic that I definitely want to make sure I didn't miss out on. And it's good because I mean you were talking about the Colin Gillespie signing, and given again, like the whole, like, to me, the early story, this like the story within the story really was like Sphinx Suns didn't probably have much expectations this season. Yet they're having this above 500 start all of a sudden, and within that, probably I would suspect that like there's different perhaps feelings and emotions about Suns owner Matt Ishbia, right? He's a I give him credit. He's a visible owner. He doesn't shy away from talking about like what's going on in his organization. At the same time, there might be like some views like maybe he came in like way too hot with once he took over the team and trying to drive the rapid change he's made this season. Well, let's frame it like this. Like, now again, 20-ish games in the season. If you take it back to like that, this very past summer off season, what sort of aura is Matt Ishbia at this point kind of emitting around the team, and then by proxy also like how are the fans feeling all of a sudden now, or like is it indifference in there, or wait and see? Like the Matt Ishbia piece of this, and I feel like also that by extension his front office, like that can't really be like ignored here because they didn't have a lot to work with.
Yeah, I think there was some reflection that took place, and it's shown in how he's spoken about his first handful of months and obviously handful of years in this position. And he's admitted to them kind of starting with him having some missteps on the vision and how they can get to prominence and winning in a sustained manner and jousting back and forth with some of these top tier teams. I feel like we saw him be able to have that kind of impact and showing a change in approach to roster building and the type of pieces that he wanted his teams, and I say teams plural, to bring in, because you look at the Phoenix Mercury team from this past season. Like, yes, they go and trade for Satu Sabali and Alyssa Thomas in the offseason, but look at all of the other pieces that they brought in. Very strategic and intentional to the identity that team wanted to play to. And I bring up the Mercury because obviously they're owned by Matt Ishbia and company as well. That's one kind of example of the vision that he has. And you see what that got that team this past season, a trip to the finals in a situation where they had a quote-unquote murder's row of the reigning champs in the first round. Took care of that business. The team that went against the reigning champs in the finals the season before last took care of that business. Ran into a buzzsaw that was Asia Wilson in the Aces, but it wasn't for a lack of the kind of grittiness and the tough tenacity, the blue collar dynamics. The way that team defends is very akin to the philosophies and everything that Jordan Knott has established. And that's the type of thing that Matt Ishbia wanted. A team that was, and I quote, one that fans would be proud to be kind of cheering on and being in participation with. A team that would make the city proud in a sense. And I would say through this first handful of games, the Suns are sitting at 14-12, 7th in the West right now with one of the better defenses in the league. I would say he's delivered on that by way of the pieces that he's put in position. Now, they have to continue to play to that level, but it's very clear that there is a no-nonsense and non-negotiable approach to defense. And this team being able to defend is what I've always said is going to be the barometer for what their ceiling will be this season. If they can be top 10, top 9, top 8 in defensive rating and be in a similar range in terms of half-court defensive rating, I see no reason why they can't outright duck the play-in tournament altogether and potentially be a top 6 team in the Western Conference going into the playoffs. And again, going back to the aspersions casted upon the team in preseason and all of the things that people were looking at that they didn't think they had, and people talking about they might be the worst defense in the league, all that can completely go out the window, and I would look forward to seeing a lot of accountability being taken on the timeline if the Suns make the playoffs, regardless of how they go about doing so.
Yeah, I mean, they're on the cusp of it in some ways, at least the first step of it. I mean, 14-12, the city is a 7th seed right now, so I mean, the key really is like they have to keep that winning trajectory going, and you can't rule that out. I mean, granted, yes, it is the Western Conference, and it's always going to be a slugfest. Honestly, I noticed like some media members early with this season were starting to make sort of like this pendulum swing kind of take about, oh, the East perhaps is the deeper conference. I still think the West is the stronger conference. Like, I don't know where you stand on that, but I just think there's too much. There's too much talent in the West, and like the bottom rung of the West, maybe, compared to the bottom of the East at this point, there's some differences. But also, I've just never been a person to judge a conference by the bottom. It's like, where's the firepower? And like, it's still in the West. So there's something to be said, I think, about the Suns sitting above 500 in that conference. It's not something to sort of dismiss. And Matt Ishbia may be getting some receipts or some apology letters if the Suns keep this going.
Man, he's. I haven't spoken to him, obviously, but I would imagine he's very proud of the response that his team has had and obviously the hires that they've made in this past offseason as far as the coaching staff goes and how they've gone about implementing things that are going to be impactful upon winning, starting with that culture and that environment that breeds confidence in the guys, that lets them play to their qualities, and then allowing for things to be built out from the relationships built with those guys. So they're vibing at a different frequency right now. It's one that's a lot higher than people suggested, expected, or assumed that they would already. And that's without them having played with their number 2 or backup guys to Devin Booker and Jalen Green. this team operating as well as they have so far, and what they could potentially be to help take things to another level when he comes back is going to be very interesting to watch over the next handful of weeks once he returns.
100%, yeah. I mean, like that also is a case for, again, having some increased optimism perhaps about this team, because I mean, for what the Suns are doing so far, you don't have Jalen Green yet. You just got Devin Booker back as well. There might be some sneaky depth here to sort of see emerge in Phoenix. Before we get out of here, one thing I also want to make sure I do get an opportunity just to dig in a bit with you. We mentioned up front, like you also cover, so you've covered the Chicago Sky for quite some time. You're covering the Phoenix Suns right now for PHNX Sports as well. I would love to get your take on what are some of like the WNBA offseason storylines that fans should be paying attention to. It's a league that continues to grow, and like I self-admittedly will consider myself like a WNBA casual, and I say I respect to that league because like I admire the work of like what you do, and there's so many like super deep knowledgeable people about that league, and I'd say all this that like everybody like follow the people that cover the WNBA. Well, I also had Lucas Kaplan. He covers the Liberty here in New York City. I think there's just a ton of great, smart people covering that league. And I definitely, any opportunity to like hear the smartest people about the league talk about it, I want to create those opportunities. So what are the things in this offseason right now that are catching your eye, things that people should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I think naturally the CBA negotiations, what those look like, what are the kind of figures in terms of numbers going to be for teams going into the season in terms of the money that they'll have to spend and how the players can kind of align with that and everything. It's a lot of gray area right now. Still doesn't seem like the Players Association and the league itself are seeing eye to eye on many different things, and that's why they're kind of at this impasse right now, if you will. So wondering when they're able to kind of push something across the finish line, how that entails to maybe changes, maybe training camp starts sooner than April off of everything that they're looking to do. Maybe they add more games to the schedule, but they add the calendar of the year, kind of having a little bit more space so that games aren't so clumped together so closely, and that there's time for teams to travel and do all of those things and have a little bit more on-court time to practice. So I would start there before anything basketball related. But to get to the basketball side of things in between the lines or on rosters, I would keep a close eye on where some of these kind of big names are going to end up. There's been a lot of coaches from the NBA realm being added to the front of WNBA coaching staffs and kind of spearheading some new philosophies and approaches and upping the pace and picking up pickup points and going for offensive rebounds and switching a little bit more. Like all of these little things that we've been seeing on the NBA stage for a few years, the W is starting to expedite their process and involving those things. And it's making the game that much more intriguing. So if you like basketball, period, regardless of what gender or what level, you should love the WNBA. It's a great brand of basketball. And I think it's only going to get better. But just for the sake of names, Jonquel Jones and everything that is what her level of play is. This is a former MVP. This is a player that's won a championship, been to the finals round multiple times. Where does she end up? Does she stay with New York and everything that they're looking to do with their new coach that was brought in from the Golden State Warriors bench? And then someone like Azurá Stevens. She spent most of last season starting for the Sparks. Obviously, Cameron Brink, one of their kind of crown jewels from the draft the last couple of years, was out early because of an injury that happened last season. She comes back. She's in that reserve role. She won't be in the reserve role going into this season. So what does that mean for Azurá? Are they able to bring her back? Is she going to end up going somewhere else? Who is it that she ends up with, and what does that impact look like? Like, there's a lot of questions that pertain to that can't really be answered until we get some kind of clarity on the CBA and things like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like whenever that does kind of come to fruition and where players go in respect to that.
Yeah, that will be a big one. And, I think for the benefit of all basketball fans and definitely all WNBA fans, you would hope that there's a a good mutual agreement to be had there, because it would be a shame if some sort of work stoppage got in the way of a lot of the momentum that that league has been able to accomplish over the last like 2 or 3 seasons. And yeah, you just that's a league that's on the right direction in terms of growth trajectory. Hopefully everybody can just find a agreement there to be had.
I'll say real quick on that too. Definitely the work stoppage is not what's desired, but if that's the cost of the players getting what they have deserved for decades now, so be it. You can't keep getting away doing bare minimum for these top tier athletes that you have in your league. You can't dine yourself as the best women's professional league in the world, but not be meeting these players with the means that they need to sustain and maintain at that elite athletic level. There should be no stop to the extent that the league should want to go to compensate these players both monetarily and in travel and in facilities extended to them to be the best version of themselves. You want to be the best league and you want to match your words with your effort, then show it. And I feel like that's the discrepancy at this point. The league thinks they can only go but so far and kind of marginally get to it. And the players are like, no, we've been deserving of this before most of those players even got into the league. Like the rent is due on that. So there's no more corners being cut. And I love and salute the players for the stance that they've taken. It's not just one of we want more. It's understanding how they can get more and also understanding that it's there for the taking. It's just a matter of if the powers that be want to press the button to give them that return on the investment. So I salute the players. They've obviously had multiple leagues open up over the past handful of years that will give them opportunity to stay sharp. Should there be a work stoppage in some capacity, and I imagine those kind of entities come to fruition if it does get to that point. But I think they're more than comfortable if it takes a little bit longer to get it done, so long as it does get done.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, Unrivaled, that's been growing over the last year or two. So yeah.
Project B is another one that's taking off starting next year around this time. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the players have to advocate for their value, and like, yeah, I commend them for that, because I think, like anybody, I mean, you talked about that work example with Jordan earlier. You need leadership that understands the value of what the talent is bringing to the table, and you just got to come to a fair agreement on that.
Yep, 100%, man, 100%.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, we go for hours, man, talking about hoops all the time. And like, I definitely want this to be one of many visits you have here, man. Thank you for blessing this podcast, blessing me with your time. And the basketball world is greater off for it, man. Yeah. Before we get out of here, what stuff do you want to plug? I think you mentioned you had like film session kind of thing coming out. Just platform is yours to plug, man.
I appreciate it, man. I would just say, because I got a lot going on. Sometimes I can't even keep track of it myself, to be honest. I'm just handling business, but simply put, you can just follow me on socials, specifically on Twitter at Stephen with the PH, STEPHEN PG3. Always obviously pubbing my own work, but generally talking basketball, men's side, women's side, college ball. Doesn't matter if it's basketball and it's on, I'm probably watching and talking about it. So yeah, feel free to shoot me a follow over there. Feel free to ask me questions, talk basketball, whether it's Suns, Mercury, or Sky related, or if it's other teams in the league. I do watch both leagues at large as well. So if you want to talk basketball, I'm always down to do it. Let's continue to clean up this space of ours, because the game is in a good space and it's continuing onward to an even better one. And with that great space that it's in, it needs to be met with care and to be handled appropriately in respect to the level of play we're seeing. So if you want to do so from an unbiased perspective and genuinely do it, I'm always down to talk ball. So let's play our parts in cleaning up this space. And that's why I appreciate you, your work, and the platform that you've extended for me to hop on and talk some ball with you, Morris. I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. Yeah, I can't say enough again. Like, people like you, man, like you really paved the path for me to feel confident to take this step forward. Because I mean, you do it in such a like authentic way to yourself, also. So it's just like I appreciate that inspiration and influence that you've given me. So yes, everybody, please follow Stephen on the socials. You will not regret it at all. Like you will learn something about basketball every single time you see some content from him. I'm a living testimony to that. And then before I get out of here, let me make sure again, please follow Narratives Per Possession on socials as well, but please subscribe to this YouTube channel as well. It helps the channel continue to grow. Please leave a like, please leave a comment as well. Again, Narratives Per Possession, we're here, man, to connect you to better basketball narratives, connect you to real hoops talk. So with that, I again thank you so much, Stephen. Been a blast, and look forward to having you back on, man.
Hey, I'm looking forward to the next time, man. Be blessed.
All right. Thanks. Peace out, everybody.